Hello Simmers and welcome to London Heathrow. This is the Origami Studios scenery that was released a couple of days ago. We are in X-Plane 12 with the basically the default scenery with X World Europe and for London Heathrow then the Origami Studios Heathrow scenery. Very nice scenery package, very detailed. The AI traffic is traffic global. It's not officially compatible with X-Plane 12 yet, but if you read the xplane.org forums, there is a step-to-step guide on how to get it working in X-Plane 12. And it brings some life to the simulator if you're flying offline. As you can see, the Origami Studios, let's see, this one is not too detailed, but if you go to the Terminal 5 from British Airways, you actually have the interior of the terminal also modeled. So let's just take a quick look inside Terminal 5. The floors, some of the Gordon Ramsay store. Very detailed scenery for London Heathrow. But we're not in Terminal 5, we are not in passenger operations today, we are going for cargo operations with the RotateSim MD-11 freighter. FedEx livery, and the plan that we have for today is to take this airplane from London Heathrow down to Leipzig. So let me just bring up the route from my other screen. We're in Heathrow. We're going to take off to the east, Brooklands Park 6 Juliet departure, climb out over the North Sea, cross the Netherlands, and then into German airspace to descend into Leipzig-Halle Airport. Now the arrival gives us quite a detour, so we'll probably be editing our arrival route to go for a direct into the final approach for runway 8 right. But we'll have to wait and see how everything works out. But that's the plan. So I just set the weight and balance for the airplane. So let's just request this one, request the stairs, and oh, wait a minute, I had to restart the sim. So I don't have the weight and balance yet. So let's just set the weight and balance then in the Rotate MD-11 aircraft menu. Our flight plan gives us a zero fuel weight of 187,200 kilos. So let's see, we right now have a zero fuel weight of 11491. So that's 187.2 minus 114.91 makes the total payload weight today 72,290 kilos. That gives us a zero fuel weight of 187.2, so that's good. The block fuel for our flight today is 28,075. Taxi fuel is 907. And the actual trip fuel is expected to be 10,060 kilos. So apply this load configuration to the aircraft. Oh, and now of course we have to set the ground operation. So we have the stairs. Let's open the main door so that we can actually enter the airplane and request refuel and loading of the airplane. There's the loading equipment already. Well, we climb the stairs and move. Enter the flight deck. Here we are. So X-Plane 12 still in beta. This is beta 8 with the RotateSim version, what was it? 1.5-3. It was released a couple of days ago, so I'm quite anxious to see how everything works out. So we are now cold and dark. Let's start with some checks. Let's first make sure that the weather radar is actually in the off position, which it is. We'll make sure that the fuel switches are off. The chocks, I thought I put the chocks on. Let me just check that. Chocks are set. That means that the parking brake can be released. And the speed brake is off. The flaps are up. And the gear lever is down. On the overhead panel, we'll make sure that the fuel dump emergency stop is covered, that the dump and the manifold drain are also covered, and that the emergency power is off. Let's just see. Let's just make sure that all these red covers are closed. We have external power available. Let's first start the battery. We'll check that the bus lights indicates off. That's these. We'll perform an APU fire test. So what we'll do is we'll press this button and we expect to see 7 lights burning. And that's 1 light on each of the fire handles, both for the engines and the APU, and lights on the fuel switches. So let's just press it, and we shouldn't hear any sounds with the external power still not on the buses. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lights and no sounds, so that is correct. And well, let's just go to external power for now. There we are. So now we'll run the fire test again. The screens are now online, and now we should also hear the audible warnings.
Engine 1 fire. Engine 2 fire. Engine 3 fire. Engine 1 fire.
So that is checked. We also have to make sure that the trim air switch is dark, and we can check the annunciator light. So press the annunciator light test. That will check whether all the lights are working, and when you press it long enough you will also see a air system test starting, and that should be indicated down here. So let's just press that button. Oh, that's the wrong button. That's the one that we're looking for.
Overspeed. 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 Overspeed.
So just check that all the lights are actually working.
Overspeed. Overspeed.
We have the air systems test indicated in here.
Overspeed.
First we'll check that
Overspeed.
all the lights here are also working.
Overspeed.
And then we can release the button. I will set the air system in here for a minute. Now the temperature in the airplane right now is 17 degrees Celsius. We have set the desired temperature to 24, which is actually quite high. So let me just put that slightly lower, so that once we have the what do you call it, the bleed air system online, the airplane will actually set the temperature to the desired levels, and they should be roughly 20-21 degrees, or at least that's what most people consider a comfortable temperature. So having done that, what we can do right now, I'll just wait with the APU starting. So let's just fire up the IRUs. We'll switch these 3 switches to the nav position, and the first one that you switch, doesn't matter in which order you do it, but the first one will trigger the cargo fire warning. If that doesn't come online manual or automatic, then you have to press the manual test, but we'll just do it like this. Wait a couple of seconds. There it is. So that test is now completed. So the first thing that I will do right now is check the AC status on the FMCs to make sure that we have the same information and databases on both of the systems. So it's MD11 deflected ailerons with CF80C2 engines, that's checked. The program is the PS40705441-913, PS40705441-913. The active database is the current database running from October the 6th to November the 3rd, so that's still active. It's C2210 Romeo 1, that is also checked. So these screens are identical, which means that we can work with them. So let's go to the flight plan init page. We are in London Heathrow, which is Echo Golf Lima Lima, and we are flying to Leipzig Halle Airport, which is Echo Delta Delta Papa. Our alternate today will be Frankfurt, so Echo Delta Delta Fox. That is down there. Now, as mentioned, we are in London Heathrow. We are parked at stand number 615. So what we now have to do before we press the align button is make sure that the position that is mentioned in here corresponds with the position of stand 615 in London Heathrow. So what I always do is I'll go to Navigraph, go to the parking stands, make sure that 615 in the scenery is also 615 on the chart. They can differ, especially if the scenery is older and in real life the stand numbers have been changed, but right now with the Origami Studios scenery this is completely accurate. So 615, we go to the parking stand coordinates, and for stand 615 we will need a other chart. So let's just get rid of this one, go to EGLL charts list, taxi parking stand coordinates continued. This is the one that we want. So we are at 615, which is this one. So we need north 5127.7, north 5127.7, and west 0028.5, west 0028.4. So we need to alter this one. So what you do is you press the line selector key here, make sure that these two arrows are above this, and then with these arrows you can change this number. So we want that to be 285. There we are. So 51277 000285. That is correct. So initialize the IRS. The flight number today we are FedEx 55 Charlie. And the cruise level for our flight today will be flight level 370. So having said that, we are now aligning. So what we can do now is proceed with the pre-flight on the overhead. So the nav system is still aligning, so we can do the CVR test. It's hard to see with this dark cockpit, but you can actually see the needle move to the right when you press the green test button. So there we are. And well, let's set this one too high. This is all okay. Now we can set the hydraulic pressure test. In real life you would check with maintenance that no one is working on anything, but let's say that that's alright. So we'll press the hydraulic pressure test, and when you go in here to the hydraulics page, you can actually see hydraulic pressure test is now running. Now it will run, and as the test is successful you will hear nothing. If the test is unsuccessful for whatever reason, you will get an audible warning stating that the pressure test has failed. But that's not the case for now. So let's just proceed down. This is running. Now what we can do is we can switch the emergency power to arm. So let's do just that. This will run for approximately, it will illuminate the on light for roughly 30 seconds while it runs a test, and when you hear nothing, everything is fine. This one is set to norm. The drive switches are all covered, so that is good. The bleed air system and the packs are all set correctly. So moving down further, the fuel is equally distributed throughout the system. That is good. And we have an emergency lights test that we can run. So if I go to this one, and I think I have to press and hold this for 8 seconds if I'm not mistaken, but let's just move slightly to the side so we can actually press the button. And then we should see an emergency lights test indication appear on this screen. So yeah, there it is. Oh, there it was. Just have to hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Emergency lights test pass. Okay, so that is good. Alright, the hydraulics test is also passed. So what we'll do is we'll close the cover for the test button. And we'll switch auxiliary pump 1 on. Now right now this IRS is still aligning. If you want to know how long it takes the system to align, you go to the reference page, to POS reference, and then to page number 2. And you can see that it will still take 6.5 minutes for the IRUs to align. So we'll set the standby instrument correct, and what we can also do is just check the weather real quick and see what the QNH at Heathrow is right now. So what I always do is I go to the map mode, click on the airport, go to details, and then you have the conditions here. So we have a wind at 149er at 7 knots and altimeter 29er 53. So we are now in hectopascals. We want to go to inches, so you press this button, and you can also do that on the other side. And 29er 53 is what we're looking for, so you can set that using this knob, 29er 53. There we are. Make sure that is also set on the other side. I have synced the barometric values on the PFDs, so that is fine. The only thing is, even if you have synced the baros, you still have to manually adjust the standby instrument. So we have to dial this one down to 29er 53 as well. There we are. Now we have to wait for the IRUs to completely align before we can run the terrain tests. So what we will do in the meantime is load the flight plan into the flight management computer, and then we'll proceed with the pre-flight checks. So let me just zoom in a little bit into this one. Now if I take a look at my flight plan, I have a cost index today of 83. So we'll enter that in there. If you go to the next page, well, let's say we have a reserve of 4%. And landing weight is not allowed. We have to go for the takeoff gross weight. That is set. This is all done. So let's go to flight plan and start entering the route that we would like to take. So we want to depart Heathrow runway 09er right. So press that one, go to SID, select runway 09er right, and we'll fly the Brookmans Park or BPK 6 Juliet departure procedure, which is this one. So that is now selected. Press insert, and that will bring the SID to the nav display. After Brookmans Park, we want to fly in Airways, so you hit the line selector key before Brookmans Park, go to Airways, and then you can enter the VIA and 2. So we're going to fly Airway Quebec 295 to Brain, Bravo Romeo Alpha India November. And after that we're going to fly the Mike 197 to Redfa, so Mike 197 to Redfa, and after that we have some direct to, so we're going to insert these airways, and they are now in here, so you can actually see the airway number above the waypoint name. So Quebec 295 to Brain, and then it's Mike 197 via Gaspa Redlow to Redfa. And after Redfa we are flying direct to Taga, which is Tango Alpha Charlie Hotel Alpha. That's a direct. Then it's another direct to Norta, November Oscar Romeo Tango Alpha. And now there are two waypoints on this planet that are named Norta. Well, the one that is 5,125 miles away is a little bit far, so let's go for the other one that's more likely on a short domestic, well, not a domestic, on a short haul international flight. 384 nautical miles away from our current position. That sounds plausible, so let's select that one. And after Norta, we'll fly to Atmos, which is Alpha Delta Mike Oscar Sierra. From Atmos, we will fly another airway, so we'll select the line selector key before Atmos, go to Airways, and then the airway is Tango 959er. And we'll fly that one to Kojak, which is Kilo Oscar Juliet Echo Charlie. And that will be the entry point for our star. So we'll select Insert, and then we'll go to the Echo Delta Delta Papa, select Star, and we expect to land runway 08 right. I want to use the ILS, so India 08 right. And then we'll fly the Kojak 1 Romeo arrival, which is this one. And let's just see if we have a... oh crap, I don't want that one. That was the wrong button, my apologies. Let's see. No, we are going into final, so we're not going via Sanu. So this is okay for now. So just insert. Now, the thing is, that's in many German airports nowadays. Like I mentioned before, the arrival route is basically a massive detour in a zigzag pattern. And, well, that's basically brought into place in case there is like very high volumes of traffic moving into the airport. So ATC has the ability to store much more airplanes in this arrival route. But when you fly in and it's actually quite quiet, there's no need to fly this entire route, and they will basically give orders to descend earlier and then fly basically straight in. And that's what I'm anticipating for our flight. So soon after takeoff, we will alter the arrival route for basically a direct route from Kojak to the outer marker for the ILS. But we'll do that later in the flight. But just so you know, you can also choose to do it on the ground. It's a relatively short flight, and if you have time, that's fine. We'll just wait for the flight. But anyway, what we will do when I press flight plan button again, I will be at the top of the flight plan or at the first waypoint. And I want to check to see if there's no strange entries in the flight plan. So what I'll do is I'll go to the plan mode in here. And when I decrease the range, that's maximum zoomed in. We can now run through the flight plan with this arrow key. So basically the flight management system, if you ever flown Airbuses in the sim, this must be very familiar. The system, it's a bit of a crossover between Boeing and Airbus, but it's more like an Airbus than a Boeing. So let's just walk through the plan and see if the magenta line doesn't display strange corners or anything like that. Okay, so here we are. Now we are starting to arrive at the airport. So let's see what this does. Yeah, and then there's the manual and the flight plan discontinuity. Well, I'll leave it like this for now. But once we are airborne, we will take a closer look and start to alter the arrival route. But for now, I'm satisfied that the entries that we've made are correct and that it will bring us to Leipzig. So that is good for now. So back to the... oh, that was my mouse. Back to the map mode. Let's go to the performance page. So we have economy climb, page 1 of 3. Let's see the transition altitude. If I take a look at my chart, is 6,000 feet. So this 18,000 is not correct, so you just press 6,000 and enter that in the lower left line selector key. Well, there's not much that we can do in here. So we'll go to the thrust limits by pressing the lowest right line selector key. Let's go for a managed takeoff. And that's basically all that I ever do in here. You can also derate it or enter a flex temperature. I'll just usually use the managed position. I don't know what the proper procedure is in real life. So if you are watching this video and you do know the proper procedure in real life, please leave a comment, explain that to me. But usually this works and I'm off the ground before the end of the runway, which is basically the main criteria that I use. So it works. So the init page was already set, so let's go to the takeoff approach page. I want to take off using flaps 20. And well, the wind was 7 knots. And it's, well, basically a headwind. It's 150, so it's a crosswind, but we'll just call it a headwind. So what I always enter is 0.0 for the slope, slash, and then Hotel Delta for headwind, 7 knots. And when you enter that there, you'll get a format error, so it's probably just 0/head 7. That's it. The outside air temperature right now is 18 degrees Celsius. That's actually quite warm. Celsius. Check, confirm the V speeds 137, 147 and 160. So we'll just make sure that we have those set, and they are now in magenta on the primary flight display. We also have the taxi indication. That should mean that the IRUs are aligned. So let's just see if that is the case. They are aligned indeed, so that is nice. So what I usually do is I put the flight plan on the pilot non-flying FMS and the takeoff page on the pilot flying FMS, which will be my own, of course. So 137, 147, 160 set, step trim 5.7 for a flap 20 takeoff. Now the flap system on the MD-11 is actually a thing that I had never seen before. This lever has a couple of positions. It's up 0, that will set the sleds, and then it goes down to 28. But the entire range between 0 and 28, you can set the desired flap value by moving this knob. So it's now stating something over flaps 15. We want to use flaps 20 for takeoff, so you just roll this knob and that will set flaps 20. So now when you move the flap lever down, it will be stopped in the position that is flaps 20. So you can adjust your flaps like that. I'd never seen it on any other plane, but it's actually quite cool that it works. And it is correctly modeled. So having done that, we have the takeoff page set, we have the V speeds calculated, we have the route in the airplane. So let's just we have the IRUs aligned. So let's proceed with our before takeoff flows. We were almost done on the overhead panel. The only thing we have to do is check the terrain. And the terrain radar is not modeled right now. That's a little bit of a shame. I hope that will be done in a future update. But for now, because usually in real life you can select between weather and terrain with this push button. And you set it to terrain before you move the ground proximity warning switch to the test position. We cannot do that in this airplane, in this add-on. So we'll just test the ground proximity warning system, and we'll do that by moving this switch down for approximately 2 seconds. So 1,000, 2,000.
Pull up. Terrain.
And normally you would see the terrain radar draw some blocks on the ND. There's a very nice video of an actual flight instructor in a level D sim explaining the power up of the MD11. It's really worth to watch. It's 1 hour 15 minutes, but well worth it. But anyway, let's just proceed. So that test was complete, so that means that the overhead is almost complete for us. This is tested, the APU was already tested. We make sure that these switches are in auto and that all the other switches are dark. Cabin pressure is normal. There's no there's no lights on. The valve is open, so that's all good. The engine anti-ice is dark. I want to set the defog on, as well as the windshield anti-ice. We already tested the annunciator lights, the fuel used resets. What we have to do is check on the fuel page that the fuel used in here is at 0. Now when you load the add-on, it's usually called in dark, and that will be the case. But if you have performed a flight, you made a short stopover and a short turnaround, I must say, and you are going for the next leg, then you must press the fuel reset button to make sure that these values are all 0 before you start your next leg of your flight. Anyway, that was set. This is done. This is all done. The red covers are all closed, so that is the overhead. So let's go for the lights. Let's just dial those up. Emergency lights test was checked, so we can set the no smoking seatbelt signs on. The landing lights are retracted and off, the nose light is off, and what we can do is make sure that the runway turn-off lights are off and the nav light is dark. So you have 3 darks and 3 lit. And the nav light is automatically on, which is a good thing because we are on ground power, so now the ground crew knows that the airplane is on ground power. If the lights are off, that is not correct. So 3 dark, 3 lit, that is what you are looking for. Now what I can also do already is start the APU, because we are nearing the end of the power up phase. So I just press this button. When the APU is available, it will also be on the buses immediately, but we don't wait for that. We'll proceed with the glare shield. Right now you see this little box in the lower left part of the nav displays. They are empty. What I saw on YouTube on the video is that they, I think it was Western Global, that he didn't mention the name of the airline, but that was my suspicion because it was an MD11 operator out of LAX. But anyway, I'm not an expert, I'm not even from the US. But what he mentioned was that they always operate the airplane with the traffic and data online in the box here below. Now we already had the QNH set. You make sure that the selector is in the QNH position, not in the QFE position. And for takeoff, make sure that it is on radio altitude. And we have to do that for both sides. So it is QNH and radio altitude. So that is correct. We set the correct modes. Make sure that the compass is in magnetic mode. If it isn't, you can switch between mag and true in here. We are in map mode. We already checked the plan, so I'll leave this for now. What we can do is switch the ADF and check that the arrows indicate in the lower part of the nav display, and press the VORs on. And do that also on both sides. Then we have to check the weather radar. So if we push this one, it says weather off. Let's turn it all the way to the right for the brightness. And now when we move the weather radar switch to test in here, we should see the colored screen in here, which we see, so that is okay. So this one can go back to normal, and I can turn down the brightness a little bit. and switch the weather radar off. There we are. So this is set. We are indicated airspeed. We are in knots, so that is correct. If you want to switch to Mach, you can press this button, but IAS is what we are looking for. We are in heading, not in track. That is also correct. And the initial heading for runway 9er right is 089. So let's dial the heading to 089. There we are. And the altitude is set to 10,000. Well, let's say that we are clear to climb to depart via the Brookmans Park 6 Juliet departure with an initial climb clearance to 6,000 feet according to the SID. So we can set this to 6,000 feet. That is set, and that is the glare shield complete. If we take a look at this bit down here, make sure that there are no strange lights burning in here. PFD. We have the V-speed set, taxi is indicating, so that means that we have the IRUs aligned. We're in magnetic mode and the QNH is set. On the nav display, we already checked the lateral navigation, the flight plan, so that is good. In here, on the engines display, there's no strange warnings. Emergency lights are still disarmed, so what we have to do is, I forgot to do that, set the emergency lights to arm. That should clear that message. So we now only have message for open doors and the DFDR off, which is digital flight data recorder. And basically this one will always illuminate when you are not taxiing. APU power is on, seatbelts are on, no smoking on, windshield heat on, hydraulic auxiliary pump is on, and the external power is on. Now we have both the APU power and the external power. So if we go to the electrics page in here, we can see that the external power is powering this bus, but it's not connected because the connectors are out. So right now the APU is powering the airplane. So what I can do is just switch off the external power, contact ground, and request them to disconnect the ground power unit. So dismiss that one. What we can also do is do a check with the gear that is down there. Now right now the landing gear lever is down. We have 4 greens in here and the lights in this display are also green. If I move this one out, you can see that these turn red and that also these lights turn red. Now they have to be green, so this is working correctly. Also do the same thing on the first officer station. Also no strange lights in here. The EIS source is set to 2, which is alright. And now we can proceed with the oxygen test. Now in here is a little gauge. It says both quantity and pressure. So system 1, system 2, that's the quantity for both systems. That's normal. And then we have the line pressure that is slightly lower. If I release this and when I press the test button, I have to make sure that the line pressure and the quantity remain the same after the test. So that's the test. The emergency button is not modeled. Oh. So line pressure is still the same and the quantity is still the same. We can also check on the pilot flying or the captain's side. But there we can only press the button down there and make sure that again nothing is changed. So that is good. And that basically means that we are almost good to go. We already did this one. So now what we have to do is set the auto brake to takeoff. The spoilers are off. The flaps are 0 and they correspond with what is indicated on the config page, so that is good. So what we can do now is check the warning sound if we advance the thrust lever.
Stabilizer. Flap.
Now in here you have this bar. You can basically advance your thrust lever until that bar.
Stabilizer.
That's basically max power.
Flap.
And if you push it through,
Flat.
you will see that this bar moves down, and that is actually the what did I call it? Firewall thrust. But that will give you some warning indications on your engine N1 display. So that's number 1, and then they check number 2 and 3 at the same time.
Stabilizer.
And the reason why they do that is that engine number 3 doesn't have separate audio. If I move this one up, you hear nothing, which is exactly what it's like in real life, according to that YouTube video that was shot in a level D sim. So that is nice that this level of attention to detail is modeled in the Rotate MD-11. So let's just set the radios. Let's say we are on interphone right now. That is all good, that is all good. The weather radar still off. I can already set this one to up 3%, 3 degrees, that's 4. Yeah, 3 degrees up. And let's say that the squawk code today is 5503. And we can also check the TCAS.
TCAS test pass.
Nice. Well, that finally means that we run our checks. We have the flight plan loaded up, so we are finally ready for push and start and get the H out of here. So what I'll do first is I'll set the transponder to transponding. I'll use better pushback. I already pre-planned the pushback. Let's just see, we first have to set the parking brake. That is now set. So that means we can get rid of the chocks. So yeah, I will also close the cockpit door. All nicely animated also on the exterior model. So door is now closed, and let's get rid of the stairs. And then we can close this menu. Now I will call the better pushback that usually gives a performance stutter of sometimes up to 30 seconds, so bear with me with this one. I already pre-planned it, so better start pushback. And cover your ears, this might be loud.
Ground to cockpit. Tow is driving up.
There we are. It was even a bit longer than 30 seconds in the new beta. But anyway, it is working. That's the most important thing. There's the tug. So let's set the beacon light on. There we are. And while he is busy connecting to the airplane, let us run a departure briefing.
Okay, all doors and hatches are closed, ready to connect.
So we are parked here, stand 615. We will be pushed back with the nose facing north. Taxi out via Zulu, left turn via Sierra, down here to the entry point of runway 09 right, where we will take off. We will abort takeoff for any indications or warning signs below 80 knots. When we are above 80 knots, we will only abort takeoff for fire or control surface warnings, and after V1 we will just climb out and well, just assess any damage, contact ATC, and decide what to do from there.
Tow connected and bypass pin inserted. Release parking brake.
So once we are in the air, we will fly the Brookmans Park 6 Juliet departure. So we'll make a left turn heading 050, then onto the 071 radial for the Lima Oscar November or London VOR. Until we are 10 miles out, then it's a left turn heading 016 inbound to Brookmans Park, and we'll climb to 6,000 feet and we'll pass Brookmans Park at 6,000 feet. After Brookmans Park, it's a right-hand turn towards Totri, and those waypoints are all in the flight plan that was checked in the flight management system. So that will be our departure today out of London Heathrow. If there are no questions, we will prepare ourselves for the pushback. On the overhead, we already had the APU power engaged, but we still have to switch the APU air on. And you just have to wait a little bit for the system, which is in auto, to clear some lights. You can also hear the PACs now working. And when all the lights are off, we will switch to ignition system alpha. And we'll release the brakes. Brakes released, cleared, push.
Starting pushback and you may start engines.
Starting sequence first 3, then 1, then 2. So let's start up engine number 3. Pull out the starter. Monitor the instruments. When when N2 is at 15%, then we'll open the fuel switch to switch the fuel switch to on, and that will have the engine start up. So that's right now. We can see the fuel flow is now online. EGT is rising as well as N1. And starter cutout, so start number 1. N2 is rising. N2 15, fuel switch on, fuel flow online, EGT rising, N1 rising. Starter cutout, start engine number 2, N2 rising. %, N2, fuel on.
Operation complete. Set parking brake.
Fuel flow on, EGT rising, N1 rising. Starter cutouts, lights off, set parking brake, brakes released, clear to push.
Disconnecting tow, stand by.
And that is 3. Good engine starts with 3 stable engines. So what we can do right now is switch off the APU, as well as the APU bleed. So we'll set flaps 20. Now you can check in here that the indication says 20.
Cell is disconnected and bypass pin has been removed. Hand
Yep.
signal on the left. We'll see you next time and have a safe flight.
Thanks for your help. See you next time. Bye bye. So flaps 20 is set. Let's immediately perform the flight control check. You can see the control surfaces move in this display here. And when everything is green, that means everything is alright. So full left, full right, neutral, down, up, neutral, and the rudder, left, right, and neutral. Clear signal is received. Let's set the landing lights extended but off. Nose light to taxi, and runway turn-off lights on. DFDR off. Now that is correct because the parking brake is set. As soon as we release that one, this indication should go. Auto brakes, RTO, seatbelts, no smoking on, windshield heat on. Let's set the spoilers to armed by pulling this lever out and release the parking brake and taxi out. TO config warning. Oh, we have to set the trim. That's a very good one. Step trim should be 5.7. You can see the actual value in here. So we'll just trim till we reach 5.7. There we are. So let's do the takeoff performance check again. No TO warning, so config check, config test is checked. And first we'll taxi towards the runway and then we'll set the auto flight system ready for the departure. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I think this Origami Studios Heathrow scenery in Explain 12 looks really nice. I think with the beta 8, it was not mentioned in the release notes, but I'm under the impression that with every beta the cloud textures are improved as well. I don't have any hard evidence for it, but it's just... I think the skies, they look better with each update. But anyway, let's just focus on the taxi. See if you can make a nice screenshot. Oh. So we're on taxiway Sierra. There's some incoming traffic. So let's set the transponder to TARA. And to switch the strobe lights on, you have to set the high init lights on. Let's come back on the throttle, break it down a little bit. Should be alright. So let's say that we are clear to line up and wait, runway 09 right. Okay, so after departure, I want to fly the LNAV profile. So I press the nav button. That will say nav armed in magenta above takeoff. I will also select profile. That will say profile armed above the TO clamp. And I will just line up with runway 09 right here in Heathrow. Let's say that we are clear takeoff, so let's switch the landing lights on. So just continue the turn, heading 089. There we are. So bring the airplane to a complete stop. Now we already armed the nav and profile, but now we have to arm the autopilot system by pressing the auto flight switch once. You can see that this white box surrounding TO clamp has now disappeared. That means that when we advance the thrust levers, after a certain amount of N1, the auto throttle will take over and set the exact takeoff thrust. So don't advance your thrust levers too far, because if you break the firewall bar down there, you will get a message that your N1 is too high. So that's something to take into account. So it's also something I have to be aware of. But anyway, let's go to Leipzig. Timer is engaged. V1 rotates. There we go. Positive rates. Gear up. Okay. So now I have to make that left turn. I'm deliberately a little bit below that magenta vertical line, because I want to have a little bit more speed. There we are. Okay, so here we are on profile. Okay, so let's switch the autopilot on. Nav 2, thrusts, 6,000 feet, speed 235, pitch is going down. Okay, so let's set flaps to 10. I don't know if this is the correct procedure, but this is what I always do and it seems to work. So I just move this one to 10.
Stabilizer motion.
And flaps up, slats extended. We're rocketing out of London Heathrow here, 4,000 feet per minute. It should level off at 6,000. Which it is doing nicely. I think the flight director is a little bit late with its turn indications, resulting in some very aggressive turn behavior. I think this is a little bit more smooth in real life, but I'm not a real life pilot, so. But I guess the lateral part of the flight director system needs a little bit of work, that it starts the turn earlier and less aggressive. But that's just my cup of tea. Doesn't hold altitude exactly. Okay, slats retracted. Nose gear light can be switched off. Runway turn off lights can be switched off. Seat belts. Oh. Auto. So we are at 6,000 feet. We are inbound Brookmans Park. And we should be at 6,000 feet at 6 miles from Brookmans Park, and we have met that constraint. We are at 6,000 feet. Let's just see what it looks like. Well, London City is somewhere below the clouds down there. I think that's the Thames River. Anyway, let's just focus in the flight deck. Brookmans Park is coming up. After Brookmans Park, we are cleared to continue our climb. So let's say that we're cleared flight level 180. There we are. So that's Brookmans Park, turning right. Yeah, I think that for the lateral part, the flight director can move a little bit sooner. And we are climbing, continue to flight level 180. We've passed our transition altitude, so we'll pull this knob for standards, and we also set the standards value 1013 or 29902 on the standby instrument. We can disarm the speed brake as well as the auto brake. Flaps are up. Well, let's switch on the weather radar. Should have done that prior to takeoff. better late than never. There we are.
Traffic, traffic, traffic.
I don't see any red traffic icons on the TCAS.
Stabilizer motion.
Past 10,000 feet, landing lights can be switched off. We're now increasing our speed to 343. And let's say that we are clear to climb flight level 370.
Stabilizer motion.
Well, I must say the MD11 came from a long way, but so far, well, so good. It's improved a lot since its initial release, and the developers are working really hard on X-Plane 12 compatibility. They already released a couple of updates to the airplane to make it compatible in X-Plane 12, and well, it's one of my favorite airplanes to fly just after the SIBO mod. I really like this airplane. It's a handful, it's a challenge. I'm still not used to the higher approach speeds and flap speeds, etc. It's a handful. There's still a lot to learn. And basically I'm just very happy that I'm now capable of flying at A to B, but landing can still be very challenging. So keep watching and see how I'll do just that in Leipzig. I'll skip the video here and I'm back with you guys when we are ready for the descent preparation and the approach into Leipzig. So see you in a bit. So welcome back, we are in cruise. We rocketed to our cruise altitude of flight level 370 at in roughly 17 or 18 minutes, which is quite fast, but of course the airplane is relatively lightly loaded. We have very little fuel on board. We are still over the North Sea. We can see the Dutch coastline coming up down here. That's some ortho tiles. This will be a Muiden, I guess, with the North Sea channel running through to Amsterdam. And that would mean that we have Schiphol Airport somewhere down there. But anyway, as you can see, we have an 84 knot crosswind, so the heading is a little bit off, but the track is alright. Airplane is maintaining altitude and track and speed quite nice. And I also noticed that in cruise the flight director behavior is much more subtle, and yeah, it gives much more convenience during the flight. For now we are on a very long leg of 244 nautical miles all the way down to Taga, which is in Germany. We'll fly straight across the Netherlands, and I thought this would be a nice opportunity to start altering our arrival route so that we have the correct top of descent in the system. So if we take a look at the star, as you can see, it's from Kojak, then with an impossible turn onto Delta Papa 411, all the way down to 416, 426, back to 420, and then onto the ILS. Basically what I'm planning to do is to fly from Kojak to 420, and then from 420 onto the ILS. So let's see if we can program that. So let's go to the flight plan page. So there's Kojak. So basically what we have to do is we have to delete all the Delta Papa waypoints between Kojak and 420. So let's do just that by starting to delete 411, 412, etc. 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 Then it's down to 420. We can remove this discontinuity. Then we'll remove the discontinuity for the manual. We remove manual and then we remove the discontinuity. And that should give us a flight plan that will bring us in a fairly straight line with a small zigzag from Kojak onto the final approach for the ILS. So let's decrease and zoom in on the nav display, go to the plan mode. So now we have Kojak, then Delta Papa 420, and then it's on to the final approach, ILS 08 right. So that is the plan that we are looking for. Kojak at 7000, Okenig at 7200, Kojak at 3800, and then Delta Papa 420, 3000 feet. I think that is about it. Then GAMCO, so what we can also do is go direct. No, let's just leave it like this. This is fine. I'm happy with this flight plan so far. So let's go to the progress page. So about 45 minutes to go, 300 miles. Expect to arrive at 15,700 kilos of fuel on board. Nice stuff. So let's go with the fix. Let's see if we can put in a fix for runway 08 right. It's not allowed. Okay, so I'm not really sure how to enter these fixes into the MD11 FMS. So we'll just leave it like this. Top of descent in approximately 17 minutes. Now what we can also do is take a look at the ILS or the final approach chart. So the ILS course is 082 and the frequency is 111.75. So let's see if that is set in the nav radio automatically. Not yet. So the ILS identifier is ILS Romeo. So let's enter that one in here. Triple 175, so it's the second one. Course 082, so that is now set. So we cannot forget to do that anymore. And what we can also do is take a look at the minimums. So we expect a Cat 1 operation. Barometric 628, radio altitude 200. So let's just set the radio altitude 200 is already set, so that is fine. So move this one back to the map mode, increase the range. And then that is fine already. We'll just wait with the reference speeds until we are much closer to the airport. But right now I'm satisfied that the lateral navigation is set correctly, that the top of descent is calculated correctly, and that we have a vertical profile that matches our altered arrival route, so we don't have to worry about anything about that. So I'll just continue the flight and I'm back with you guys as soon as we are close to our top of descent. See you in a bit. So welcome back. We are now over Germany and the top of descent is approaching rapidly. We are roughly 15 miles away from our top of descent right now. So let's just take a quick look. Just 1 minute. So let's start to dial this one down. Let's say that we are cleared to descend to fly level 100. We'll push that one. Did I do that correctly? No, I didn't. So 2 miles from top of descent. And right now the descent is initiated. We can see that the thrust is moving back. The auto throttle, still not too happy about that. I don't know whether that's the explain weather system or just the RotateSim, but it moves all the time in cruise. So it's like up to 90, then it's down to 80, then up to 90, down to 80. So that's a little bit tiring. I think it's highly responsive on the slightest speed deviation. So maybe the developers can look into that in the future. I will just close my physical thrust levers for now. We are descending. Now we already set the ILS frequency and course. We checked that the decision height 200 feet radio was set. So what we have to do now is check the weather for Leipzig. So let's see if it's already in here. That's Paderborn. No, I guess not. So what I'll then do is I'll just go to Google on my other screen, and I just Google for Echo Delta Delta Papa METAR, search, and then grab the actual METAR right now, which happens to be wind 150 at 8, so that it will be a landing on runway 08 right. It says ceiling and visibility okay, 18 degrees Celsius, QNH 1013 no SIG. So that is good. That means that the standard QNH or the standard altimeter setting of 1013 is already the actual QNH for the airport. And we expect to land with an 8 knot crosswind coming in from the right. That should be well within limits, so nothing to worry about there. So let's take a closer look at the flight management system and see what our speeds will be. So let's go to the takeoff approach page. If we want to land flaps 35, we will land with an approach speed of 161. And if I want to land with flaps 50, I will land with an approach speed of 155 and a reference speed of 150. I guess I'll go with flaps 50 today, just to have the airplane a little bit slower. Yeah, let's do that. Let's go for flaps 50 today. Then we should be alright. So So quick approach briefing. Kojak 1 Romeo will be bypassed. We will fly Kojak to here, then in a straight line to Delta Papa 442, then on to the ILS runway 08 right. Meaning we will land in this direction on this runway. The south part of Leipzig Halle Airport is also the main cargo apron for DHL. So we'll just roll out and we'll see if we can take Sierra 6, but with my handling skills on the MD11 we're more likely to get Sierra 9. We'll vacate the runway and then via taxiway Tango down to wherever our parking stand will be. So that will be the plan for this arrival. We are already in the descent. And so far there's not much else we can do. So I'll just proceed with the flight and I'm back with you guys as soon as we are a little bit closer to Leipzig, ready for our arrival and landing on runway 08 right. So see you in a bit. So welcome back. We are in the descent. We are approaching 10,000 feet. We are flying over Germany, over the Harz Mountains. Very beautiful terrain. Went there a couple of years ago for a week of hiking with a friend of mine. To be recommended wholeheartedly. It's also the area where in the past the border between the German, the GDR and Western Germany was located. So yeah, there was a lot of stuff, a lot of history down there. Let's just go to this station. Say that we are clear to descend 3,000 feet. There we are. And let's also set our auto brakes to medium and arm the spoilers. So we cannot forget to do that. Right now we have to start reducing speed to 217 knots. The airplane is not doing a very good job in slowing down. So I think I'm gonna help it by introducing a little bit of drag, because we are well above 250 knots and we are well below fly level 100. So let's extend the speed brake. And also set the sleds. Landing lights can be switched on. Seatbelt signs are on. The temperature is 17 degrees, so the anti-ice can be switched off. That's all normal. Let's go to config mode. Let's set our first stage of flaps, flaps 10. Let's arm the approach mode. Localizer is now armed. Well, let's switch to a vertical speed, 500 feet per minute. And let's set the flaps to 20.
Stabilizer motion.
Oh, let's store our speed brake. Speed brake armed and stowed. I want to maintain a speed of 180 for now. A little bit too close to a stall speed here.
Stabilizer motion.
Check. So speed 180. Vertical speed 700 feet per minute, so that is little over 1 minute more of descending. Let's set flaps 28. Flaps 28 is set. So let's check the QNH with the actual QNH in the sim. 29904. So 1014 on the QNH. Check. That is set. A right turn onto base leg basically. Check. Okay, turning base. 3000 feet. That's exactly what we want to be. Actually, could have been a little bit higher. So it's not a continuous descent approach, but I'm happy with this. Getting this thing lower and slow down can be quite a pain. So I always try to be a little bit ahead of schedule with this add-on. But anyway, let's just say that we are okay, so that is set, so I don't understand why it's not displayed on my approach map yet. Let's set flaps 30 and start to reduce the speed to 65.
Landing gear. 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 Landing gear.
So let's select gear down.
Landing gear. Land. Landing gear. Landing gear.
I really don't understand why I don't get the ILS needles on my nav display. Oh, there they are. I was just out of range. Never mind. Anyway. I basically could have waited with the flaps 30, speed 165 until I was established on the ILS bar actually, but well. Life is a learning curve. And once we are over at Gemco, which is down there, we have 7.9 miles to go, so it's not a 10-mile final. So I expect the localizer needle to move in any second now. There we go. So let's set flaps 50 and reduce the speed to 155. There's our runway. So flap set, spoilers armed, auto brakes medium, gear down locked, 3 green. Exterior lights set, seatbelt signs on. The missed approach altitude, in case of a go around, we have to turn right on heading 342 to intercept radial 195 from the Golf Oscar Tango VOR and climb flight of 4,000 feet. So 4,000 feet is our missed approach altitude. Now we have localizer and land armed. We are on localizer, land is armed, so glide slope is alive. We are stable. And as soon as the glide slope is intercepted and we've started our descent on the glide path, I will set the missed approach altitude of 4,000 feet in the altitude window. And glide slope is captured, so missed approach altitude 4,000 feet is set. It's quite hard to intercept the yellow or orange thing that you see. That's the ghost throttles. That is the position of your physical thrust levers on the joystick or throttle quadrant that you use. You have to match those with the throttle levers in the virtual cockpit in order to get control over your thrust. It's quite hard to match them when the virtual thrust levers are all over the place all the time. So what I will do is
Autopilot.
autopilot is engaged.
Autopilot.
So yeah, I'm in control of the thrust levers now. So let's correct on the localizer. Runway is in sight. We have that 14 knot crosswind coming in from the right, so that's blowing us off course.
1000.
So we have to correct for that as well. We are a little bit low and a little bit fast, so raise the nose a little bit. Keep that nose slightly upwind. Flying this thing manually right now is just so much fun. Response to the controls is excellent. Just make sure that you have small inputs.
400.
It's not the best approach, but we'll get there.
Approaching minimum. 200.
Continue landing. That's minimums actually, 200 feet. We're a bit fast.
50, 40, 30,
Check.
20,
Close.
10.
Hold the attitudes. Ooh, nice. Ooh, this is one of my better landings with the Rotate MD-11 so far. Reverse. Very, very happy with this landing. Not with the approach, that was a little bit unstable. But the landing, okay, reverse is stowed. Auto brakes off, manual braking. Here we are. Let's vacate the runway just here. Okay, so APU on. Nice! Welcome to Leipzig Halle Airport! Okay, so taxi lights, runway turn-off lights off, high init light off, and transponder to TA only, weather radar off. Well, it's rush hour in here. Let's first clean up the airplane. So, spoilers up, flaps retract. Let's just go in here, then turn left and park on one of the bays down there. Very curious to see what that landing will look like from the outside. But anyway, map, that's down there. So the radar is off, the APU is started, we have cleaned up the airframe. So we're all good. Turning right. Now, by the way, this is a default airport. They're just, well, of course, within the limitations of default airports, but they are actually really nice in X-Plane 12. Let's say that we are parking at 431. So let's switch off the taxi lights. Oh, look at this. I think this is a really nice picture that we're looking at here. I know there's a lot of there wasn't a lot of negativity about the sky textures in X-Plane 12, but I like them. They're not there yet. There's still that flickering. I think it's yeah. Well, I don't know what it is, but it's either loading of new scenery or a weather update. But sometimes you get this really heavy flickerings in the screen. So if you're vulnerable to epileptic attacks, I would stay clear of X-Plane 12 for now. They really have to solve that. But other than that, and of course the cloud textures, they can still use improvement. Although I have the feeling that they are getting better. Looks like we have to taxi uphill a little bit. There we are. Parking brake. Set. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Leipzig Halle Airport, where your parcels have been delivered. So let's just take a quick look at the replay.
It's 100, 200.
There we are. Well, it wasn't a butter, but it was close. Very nice touchdown. I'm really happy with this landing. Like I said, not with the approach, that was too unstable. But the touchdown, one of the smoothest I had with the Rotate MD-11 so far in X-Plane 12. The only downside is that in the replay mode you don't get your control surfaces or the flaps in the position that they were. Gentle, that's the words. It was a gentle touchdown. So let's replay slightly. In the fall or the autumn, you can see the colors in the trees. Nose gear touchdown was a bit firm. That could have been a bit smoother, but well, like I said, maybe not perfect, but when you get some sort of a somewhat of a smooth landing after lots of trial and error, doesn't have to be butter to be really satisfied with your own performance. It's such a beast of an airplane. I really, really, really love it. Nice. Well then, let's switch off the replay mode. Let's get back into the flight deck. There we are. Parking brakes are set. The APU is running. Let's set the APU air on and let's switch off the fuel. So engines off, beacon light off, contact grounds. Ask for some wheel chocks, ground power, stairs, open the cockpit door and load the airplane, basically unload the airplane. Really, really, really happy with this flight. Really starting to love X-Plane 12 despite its quirks. It's still in beta. And I guess they shouldn't move out of beta until they have fixed the flickering that I was talking about and increased some of the cloud textures a little bit more. But yeah, it's an enjoyable sim. I really enjoy flying this sim. Okay, so APU off, external power is on. And let's call that a flight. So, hope you liked it. If you have any tips, tricks, comments, questions whatsoever, please leave them in the comment section below. As usual, please do so in a respectful manner. And well, I hope you liked the video, and I hope to see you all another day on another video. And until that time, as usual, stay healthy, stay safe, enjoy your own flights, and happy landings. Thank you for watching, and bye bye.